you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs!
And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Monday, November 13th. It is 1 minute past 10 o'clock Eastern. And my buddy Vito V says, Tony, bring the fire. When my buddy Vito V says, bring the fire, I am going to bring the fire. Oh, fumo, even the whole room is going to go on fire. This is for Vito V. Look, Vito, the fire, Vito, the fire. Fire! Call the ambulance. My house is on fire. Not yet. Don't call the ambulance. I was just kidding. All right. Welcome to the Sick Podcast, everyone. Watching live on YouTube, watching live on Facebook, and watching live on Twitter as well. Eric Engels is going to... What in the world is going on with me now? I think my pants almost caught on fire. Eric Engels is going to join me in just a second, but reminding you that, of course, the Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group. It's brought to you in part by Playground, and it's brought to you in part by these guys, Bittt at Tibi. So, without further ado, let's get to it. It was a busy weekend for the Montreal Canadiens, a 3-2 overtime win versus the Boston Bruins on Saturday night at the Bell Center. Nothing better than the Canadiens beating the Bruins, unless, of course, you're a Boston Bruins fan. Of which there are many, by the way, in the city of Montreal. There are. I believe they either fell in love with Bobby Orr and or Phil Esposito back in the day, and so they passed that on to their kids, and they said, you either become a Boston Bruins fan or I give you the beating of your life. So they ended up becoming a Boston Bruins fan for the same reasons that we ended up becoming a Montreal Canadiens fan. Oh, no, we didn't become a Canadiens fan. We became a Canadiens fan because we live in Montreal, and it's so much more fun, your city, when you actually cheer for the team that represents the city in which you live in, right? That's why we do it. Okay, so big win on Saturday night. Unfortunately, the Vancouver Canucks come into Montreal like pretty pissed off because they lost on Saturday night and lost big to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So they came in on a mission. The Canadiens, you would think, were probably a little bit content with the win on Saturday night. Doesn't mean they didn't want the win on Sunday. Of course they did, but I think if you watch the game last night, the Vancouver Canucks looked like a team that wanted it more. At least they did to me. And that's exactly what happened. And they beat the Montreal Canadiens, of course, by a score of 5-2. Without further ado, I told you Eric Engels was going to join us. Oh, my God, it smells of smoke in this room. This room's going to go on fire for real. Eric Engels of Sportsnet at sportsnet.ca. What's going on?
What's happening?
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am not kidding when I tell you that the room smells of smoke. Now, it really does. It smells of smoke.
Are you sure it's from that machine that you had going on, or it's something you ate? Or
I don't know what it is, but it's probably Vito V. It was probably on fire, my buddy Vito V. All right, okay. So
you like my hat, Tony?
I do like your hat. Educate me. Where does that come from?
You don't know about Swifties?
No, but it seems like they're just going to get themselves a pretty nice plug here on the Sick Podcast.
You know what? You have friends of the show, and I understand that.
Yeah. No, don't worry about it. We're only going to bill them 10,000 tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
go for it.
Last year, but this is a very good friend of mine, Matt.
Is that right?
And he stores all kinds of incredible cars. You got to see the room that he's got going on and these cars that are in there. It's absolutely beautiful and all kinds of bodywork and stuff. And he's a good friend. Matt Swift, Brendan, he's the man. But he gave me this hat, and I said, I'm going to wear this hat everywhere I go. I love this.
I will tell you this. Any friend of yours is a friend of mine. And you know what? So on that note, I'm happy that you gave him the shout out. And I am looking for a place to put the Ferrari in the winter. I'm not going to lie to you because
I will hook you guys up.
Yeah. I got to put the Corvette somewhere too, though.
Oh, I saw one in his showroom that was from, don't want to misspeak, but I think it was 1951 or something like
really?
that. Really?
No, mine's an 84.
Insane.
But I got to find a place to put the Porsche as well, because I'm not just going to store the Ferrari and the Corvette.
You know what? I'll give you Matt's number after.
Yeah, give me his number, because if I end up storing the Ferrari and the Corvette, then the Porsche is going to get jealous. I think I'm going to have to find a place for all three of them one day when we sell the podcast. All right, okay. Until then, it was kind of like a 50-50 weekend, right? Not only was there a win and a loss, but there were some ups and downs. There were some good performances, some less good performances. Before we get to that, Renaud Lavoie of TVA and Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet. And you probably had an update on this as well. I don't know. So if you did, let me know. But I know that Renaud did, and I know that Elliot did. Samuel Montembeault and the Montreal Canadiens in contract talks, that we knew. Of course, his contract is up at the end of the year. And it's looking pretty good. Things are headed in the right direction, we're hearing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the contract talks have been positive, I believe, but that could always change pretty quickly. And I think Kent Hughes is pretty conservative when it comes to sharing any type of information on this. And I know that he's not out there telling everybody what's going on inside that thing. He keeps it pretty tight, because I think his whole experience as an agent, he knows that once it goes beyond the borders of a negotiation between the two parties, things can change and the tenor of it can become different. But I think the Montreal Canadiens would like to have Samuel Montembeault on a long-term contract. I think he'd like to be in Montreal long-term, and we'll see where it goes from there. Speaking with Montembeault after Elliott put out his report on Saturday, just said, hey, are we going to have to write Sunday morning because we already have the game and everything? And said, no, it's not happening that fast, but we are talking. And he certainly didn't hide the fact, and hasn't hidden from the fact that he wants to sign with the Canadiens. And, I think once we see where it all ends up, which I would expect it ends up with his signature on a contract, we'll evaluate what the deal looks like. But if you get him signed and it's to what it should be based on his numbers and what he's done in his performance and his age and all those things to factor into it, and the fact that he is an unrestricted free agent and you're buying years away where you could choose to play anywhere, that's one less thing you have to worry about in this build, right? Like, we know that he's an NHL goalie. We know that I think he's already earned status as a very, very good 1B and a guy who could potentially be not just a 1A, but like a solid one. There's so few goalies now that are like the guy, right? Like, there's Shesterkin in New York. There's Sorokin in New York.
Yeah.
There's Ottinger in Dallas. Who else is
Vasilevsky in Tampa?
There's Vasilevsky in Tampa. Like, who else is you're looking at them and saying, okay, that guy's starting 60 games this year. Like, it's just not the way it works anymore at that position. So if you have a guy that you can count on for 42 at least, or 41 at least, and potentially even more than that, and that he can reasonably fulfill the obligations of that duty, that costs something. There's a value to that. And we'll see where it ends up with Montembeault, who clearly enjoys his time in Montreal and sees the opportunity that he has here and wants to be here.
I would say Bobrovsky in Florida.
Not even.
Yeah, he plays most of them.
Is he? I mean, did he start? He started the playoffs for Florida, and then what happened?
Yeah, no, I hear you.
I'm just saying, like, locked in number one,
and not
going away from this guy. Like, I think
Connor Hellebuck.
I think there's there's another one. Okay, so that's 5 out of 32.
Yeah, not many. You're right about
5
that.
5 out of 32, and like, even within those 5, there's rankings there.
So who did you say again? So now Connor Hellebuck,
Sorokin, Shesterkin,
Ottinger,
Vasilevsky, Hellebuck. I would agree with.
Yeah,
I don't agree with Bobrovsky being in the same category. You could probably put Carter Hart there, but I mean, there's a few guys in that kind of second tier who are starters. They are the 1A. There's no debate. It's not a tandem. They are the 1A, but they're still sharing the net a little bit more than starting goalies used to.
Yeah. Saros
is a good example.
Yeah.
All right, we're finding more.
Yeah, we're finding a couple more.
We're finding more.
There's
but
a
even
couple
if
of guys who have a chance to establish themselves, like Thatcher Demko has a nice opportunity in front of him.
Yeah, he's a clear-cut 1A.
Yeah.
And he could be a guy that you ride as a number one. But the point is, like, teams are going further and further away from this. And I'm not saying Sam couldn't be that guy either.
Yeah.
We haven't seen it yet because he hasn't really been given that chance. But I think he's already proven that he is a legit 1B with potential as a 1A. And if he proves his potential as that 1A, he could be a number one. So
the Boston Bruins have two number ones. Let's say Ullmark and Swayman. In your world, you wouldn't trade one of them to go get depth at another position because you believe the two goalie system is the system that works better nowadays? Is that fair to say? Or?
Listen, I think both of Boston's goalies are really, really good. But when you say they have two number ones, I see them as a tandem. Like, we don't know if they're really number ones if they're not in a position where they're playing 60 games a year, because the numbers might look drastically different if they were playing at that volume of games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I understand the argument because they have two really good goalies and potentially they could help themselves at a position that has suddenly become weaker, although it's not hurting them much in the standings right now, like center with Bergeron and Krejci gone.
Yeah.
But is there urgency for them to change that? I mean, when they look at their record, I think they're probably saying to themselves, we're not looking to deviate from the plan we have there.
So give me a number when all is said and done, putting you on the spot, but that's okay, you're a big boy, that you think Montembeault and his agent will settle on when all is said and done.
Tony, I'm telling you right now, because I haven't looked deeply into it and I haven't wanted to look deeply into it and done like that big statistical analysis, because I'm the type that prefers to see what he signs for and then decide, is this the right number? Is it based on this? And like, I would never give you a number guessing without having done all the research. And I think if you look at it, and this is really off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Like, it used to be league average goaltending was .915 as a save percentage. I think it's closer to .905 now, with a few outliers who are really high up and above where they even belong. I think we've started to look at different numbers with respect to putting value on contracts like goals saved above expected, where Montembeault over the last 2 years has ranked, among the top 30 goalies in the league and higher up last year. Jake Allen's really high on that list this year. He was number one at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Both guys hovering around 905. And how much stock do we put into that, knowing the teams that they play behind? I'm not willing to put a number down in terms of what I think would be a good contract for Sam before really evaluating the entire goaltending market, which I'm going to have to do when he does sign and write that piece. But people should remember, because I've seen people tweet at me saying stuff like, if he signs for anything more than $2 million, that's a joke. Like, I mean, like, this guy is 27 years old. He'll be a coveted free agent on the market if he hits the market. You're buying up years where he can choose anywhere he wants to play.
Mm-hmm.
It helps that he wants to play in Montreal.
Yeah. But I'm gonna take
it doesn't help so much, Tony, that that you're just going to be able to fleece him in the deal and make it all within your favor. It costs money to get a goalie that you can rely on in this league.
I'm going to take it a step further. Based on Jake Allen's contract this year and next year at $3.875 million, based on the fact that a year ago Montembeault had a slightly better year than Jake Allen did, based on the fact that you're getting some of those unrestricted years that you just talked about because he has the opportunity to go free agency, based on the fact that he would be one of few Quebecers on this team, on a team and market that values Quebecers. And if you're the agent, you would use that as a negotiation tactic, because when there aren't Quebecers on this team, it usually makes the front page of the paper, and there aren't that many right now. There's Raphael Harvey-Pinard, there's David Savard, and there's Michael Matheson, who to some, and it's crazy to say, is not a Quebecer. He's a West Islander. But, and I say that half, in jest, but based on all of that, it wouldn't shock me, and I could be way off here, that Montembeault has at least the same number as Allen, and maybe a couple of dollars more. It wouldn't shock me.
3.85 is it? Allen's 3.85, I think.
Yeah, I think it's 3.875, but anyway, whatever it is, it wouldn't shock me if he's got that same number or he's got 3.9. It wouldn't shock me. It would appear to be a big number for a lot of people for a goalie who really hasn't proven himself for more than one season, but it wouldn't shock me. I could be way off.
That's kind of the thing here, right? Like, you're talking about a much larger body of work when it comes to Jake Allen and a different role and a different age bracket when he signed the contract. And that's where it gets kind of dicey comparing contracts. I understand the situation, and both of them playing on the same team enables Montembeault to make kind of a case like that. But at the same time, like, typically you compare apples to apples in these situations when you're the GM, at least in that position, and that's coming at you as an argument. We'll see where it ends up. We'll see if it ends up getting signed, because it's never done until it's actually signed. Like, it's not handshakes are not deals in this game. It's, you better put pen to paper before you start talking or spiking the football and saying this is done. Things can go off the rails with one phone call or one conversation. So we'll see where it ends up.
It is 3.85 for Jake Allen, by the way. Next year with a modified no trade clause.
Yeah. Seven teams that you could choose not to go to.
Yeah.
If that's where it ends up with Sam, I can't tell you whether or not that's good, a good deal for the Canadiens or a good deal for Sam without evaluating the entire market. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. On that note,
boring. I'm sorry.
I
wish I could have been more outlandish for you.
Don't worry about it.
I don't like putting myself out there without having done the research. Otherwise, I really am just guessing, and I don't like to guess.
Okay, that's fine. 50-50 weekend, I thought, for Brendan Gallagher and Nick Suzuki, really, who I thought had a really strong game on Saturday night. So Gallagher, I know you didn't want to dismiss him. I talked about his skating being laborious in training camp, very hard to look at, and there's no way he had a chance to be in the top 6. I have to tell you, I should have known better to doubt a guy who's been doubted by probably 80% of the hockey world all his life. I didn't think he was finished, but I thought that the end was near. He's got gas left in the tank.
We should play some of those clips of you and I talking back then.
He's got gas left in the tank.
I think you stopped me halfway through what I was saying and say, "Whoa, Eric. What are you talking about? Gallagher is going to be able to come back." Look, it didn't look pretty in training camp. I think everybody can acknowledge that. But Gallagher is a perfect example of why you don't judge a player his age in training camp. It just sometimes it takes the motor a bit of time to get running. And I said this on our Sportsnet broadcast Sunday night. It's running pretty well. And the fit with Pearson and Monahan, 3 guys who play a straightforward game, that's one thing. Another is that he's healthy. Like, he came into last season, and a lot of people forget what he looked like before he got hurt, because he was turning the corner and doing good things. And kind of like Josh Anderson this year, he wasn't scoring, but he was doing good things. And then he suffered that ankle injury and then tried to come back and hurt it again. And just a terrible type of situation for him that he wasn't able to recover really and come back. And I just think that's a guy, like you just said it, bet against him at your own peril. Like, and he's on pace for what, 28 goals this year. I don't think he's going to score that many, but I never thought for a second that it wouldn't be possible for him to get back to 20. I will say, just as much as anybody watching him in training camp, I was saying to myself, like, it's tough out there for him right now. It's tough. But he's a perfect example of why, when you get to 31, 32 years old, you got to give those guys just a little bit. Don't judge too much what you see there in training camp, because that could be a huge illusion.
5 goals in 15 games for Brendan Gallagher, not too shabby. How many does Caulfield have? Caulfield's got 5 goals.
5 or 6, yeah. 5.
Yeah. Brendan Gallagher has the same amount of goals as Cole Caulfield after 15 games.
Caulfield has 3 in overtime and 1 in the power play and 1 at even strength, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that's a big season that Gallagher's having so far, 15 games in. So I thought it was a big game by him. By the way, like his goal was such Brendan Gallagher's career, right? It was so that's him. Like, and he's going to the net, and McAvoy's like, yeah, okay, where is this guy? Let me keep an eye on him. He's hovering, he's going behind McAvoy, he's going. And then he just right place, right time, and then second effort. The way he's like kind of like diving to try and basically jam that one home. That was very Brendan Gallagher like, man.
I agree. I'm wondering if people are noticing all the other things he's doing on the ice, because there's plays that he's making that show the evolution that he's had under Marty St. Louis. You know, you talk about not being able to teach an old dog new tricks. Like, he's made some excellent plays, especially in transition to Pearson, to Monahan. The passes coming over the line, zone entries, stealing pucks like he did in the Vancouver game and put himself out there all alone to get a breakaway opportunity and took a shot that DeSmith made a nice save on. But like, there's more to his game than just the game that we've always seen him play as Brendan Gallagher. I think he has evolved as a player, and one thing that I think is in balance with that, Tony, is that he is still playing his old school game. You know, I think there was a point in time here where the transition was difficult for him under Marty St. Louis, where all these concepts that St. Louis was bringing in, there was an adaptation period for him, for sure, like unquestionably. But he has adapted without losing who he is as a player. I think that process has been more difficult for a guy like Josh Anderson. And I think while Josh Anderson has been in this situation where the puck really wasn't going in for him early on and it really looked like a struggle, now he's kind of reverting back to the player he's always been in terms of style of play instead of, you know, all the concepts that Marty preaches. And he's kind of looked like the best version of himself, despite the fact the puck's not going in for him. And I honestly feel for him right now. Like, what else does this guy have to do to score? Because if you look at his last 3 games, if anybody objectively looked at them and said, "Oh, he's not playing well," they're not watching. Like,
but
well, just not.
I'll give you the advice somebody gave me a long time ago, Eric. You don't have to feel for him, okay? When he gets paid what he gets paid every 18 days, you should feel for guys like you and me, not for him, okay? He's okay.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm a bleeding heart, Tony. Like,
he's snake bitten.
I never like to see people struggle, no matter what their lot is in life. And it's a difficult thing when you're in a city like this and you're under that type of pressure.
You're right.
You can do it, but it's not happening for you. Like, and I think the discourse around his game, and I can judge just based off my replies on Twitter, is like people just saying like he's horrible, he's this, and he's not.
He's getting called the new Gomez by a lot of people. Let me tell you.
I mean,
that's all over social media.
I haven't seen that, but I mean,
you haven't? It's all. No. It seems like everywhere, like on Twitter, he's the new Gomez.
Yeah, well,
but he's creating a lot, and you know when coaches say when the first one goes in, a lot more are going to follow. You get the feeling that's going to happen for him because, like, this guy almost seems like he's invented every single which way you can miss. Like, he's missing every which way. It's unbelievable.
If there was a prop bet going into the Vancouver game on him scoring a goal, I would have taken it. Like, I really thought it was coming, especially after watching him play the game against Boston. Maybe it's coming against Calgary. One way or the other, it's coming. This guy isn't going to go the whole season without scoring. And once he does, as Marty has said, as you just said, chances are they're going to start going in bunches. And if that happens, it'll be really good for the Canadiens because they need a bit of pressure taken off some of the guys, especially at 5-on-5, that are counted on to score every night on this team. Like, the Habs are 7-6-2. I don't know if people would have given them that record even if Kirby Dach was healthy, but the fact that Kirby Dach went down in the second game of the season, after 4 periods and an overtime played, and they're in that position, and that they've played a few of the games, a few of them, they got some results that masked some of their issues. A few of them they lost that they deserved to win. And you said it was a 50-50 weekend. You've kind of mentioned that a couple times already since we've been on together here.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of an 80% weekend for them in terms of their process. Results, obviously, they had 1 win, 1 loss.
Yeah.
That game against Boston, which people were comparing to the game against Vegas, there was a massive difference in their performance versus the one in Vegas, which Marty called their most thoroughly well-played game since he's been coach.
Yeah.
They played a much better game against Boston, and I'll tell you why. There was a difference in the style of play, and it was much more straightforward and simple and hardworking. And I think this team has been guilty a little bit since the beginning of the season of thinking that, they do have a lot of skill at different positions, whether there's no debate that they're young.
Yeah.
They have skill. They have a lot of skill. But if they don't outwork their opponents, it's a crapshoot in terms of whether or not they're going to win. They completely outworked Boston and not passing their way through them all up and down the ice. They got over the red line. They dumped the puck in. They went after it. They got behind their defense. They worked the boards. They worked the cycle. They were pressing hard on the back check. They blocked 18 shots. They threw 27 hits in a game where they possessed the puck, if not as much as Boston, more. That was the type of game that should make them realize, as the third youngest team in the NHL, if they replicate that style of game, they're going to be successful much more often. Because you know what? Can you believe it? We're 15 games into the season. When you get to this point, it starts to tighten up quite a bit. The loosey-goosey back and forth Edmonton Oilers, Toronto Maple Leaf style of hockey works for 2 teams in the league, and everybody else has to grind it out. And this team is learning that that's the way it's got to be if they're going to win more frequently.
Yeah, we talked about Gallagher, who on Saturday night versus the Bruins had 13:48 of ice time. He had 5 shots on goal. He had the big goal, of course. He finished the night +1. Another guy that I thought obviously came up big was Nick Suzuki, who had a goal on the power play to tie it at 1. That was in period number 3, just 24 seconds in. It was 27 seconds later that Gallagher made it 2-1 for the Canadiens. I think somebody got through to Suzuki, and clearly the stats indicate that. By the way, I don't have them here, but I took a look at them the other day. Suzuki's averaging over 1 shot more a game in the last 6 or 7 that he's played. So in the first 15, you take a look at the first 7 or 8, and now you take a look at the last 7. I think he's almost at a shot and a half more per game on average. And a lot of people were telling him, you got a good wrist shot, you got to shoot the puck more. And it was becoming pretty obvious to everyone that Suzuki was pretty much always looking for Cole Caulfield, even when the passing lane seemed closed or it almost seemed impossible to thread the needle. He still would. And now he's shooting more. And that shot on Saturday night with Monahan screening the goalie and then moving out of the way at the last second. Wow. That was a heavy wrist shot, man.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if you're looking at it as a trend and a shot and a half more per game over the last 6 or something like that, one thing you'd probably notice outside of the Vancouver game is the Canadiens are drawing more power plays. That's going to help. And the fact that he has a shooting mentality there, knowing that lane to Caulfield just hasn't been there, that's going to help too, because he has a great shot. It's not the hardest shot. It's not the heaviest shot. It's not the fastest shot. It is an extremely accurate shot, and it's released well and at the right times. And that's what it takes to score as a guy who doesn't necessarily have the hardest shot or the whippiest shot. You talked about Canadiens having 3 French Canadians on the team, or not French Canadians, Quebecois guys on the team.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about Gallagher. You talked about Suzuki having good games. There's one Italian guy on the team who I think has been really good.
Pezzetta.
That's right. I think he's the only one who's Italian.
Well, he's the only Italian. That's why I got it right away. But don't forget, Eric,
really good.
The Canadiens have an Italian player to win the cup, Di Pietro Momesso.
If you had the ice time in front of you from Saturday's game, I don't know what Pezzetta played on Saturday. I think it was probably around 7.5 minutes.
7:54.
You have it there?
Yep.
You have the rest of his stat line?
I do. Well, I have 2 shots, 5 hits. I have that. What are you looking for?
2 shots, 5 hits in 7:54 of ice time?
Yeah.
That's a pretty effective game.
There was one. Which one was it? What?
I like this game in Detroit. I like this game in Tampa against Tampa where he scored and was one of Montreal's best players. He's playing around 8 minutes a game.
I think the one against Tampa, he had like 5 or 6 hits in under 8 minutes in the game. Again, he was like, talk about bang for your buck.
And he went in hard into the boards on a first period rush where he got a great scoring chance.
Yeah. Pezzetta's all hard, Eric. He's all hard, that guy.
I know. And you know something else? What you're seeing between him, Jake Evans, and Raphael Harvey-Pinard is a line that Marty can rely on more. I think that Marty can use that line more. And it's kind of congruent with what I'm talking about in terms of the team playing more of a grinding style. If you really want to wear teams down, if you want to play behind their defense, if you want to make it difficult for them to outwork you, you need to roll more than 3 lines. You need to roll 4. And you need to have that kind of wave after wave of pressure that wears teams down. And then your skill can really take over. And I think that's when you talk about 50-50 weekend and I say 80% process, I look at the 2 games against Boston and Vancouver and I see a template for the Canadiens moving forward, much more so than I saw in the Vegas game where, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Because it was a great game by the Canadiens, and I'm not detracting from it. And they made a bunch of plays and created scoring chances and looked like the Harlem Globetrotters at times. But the Golden Knights looked like shit in that game. They did not play well. They had 2 guys who were really going, and Paul Cotter, who I didn't know much about before even getting to that game in Las Vegas, and he was fantastic, and Jack Eichel. And Marchessault had a couple flashes. But outside of that, nobody was there that night. And the Canadiens, clearly took something out of that game that was a bit of a mirage and a bit of an illusion based on the way they played the next 3. They lost to Vancouver. They beat Boston.
Yeah.
But if you watch the way they played both games, and I'm not saying the emotional investment was the same in each one because I think it's normal that
they got outworked last night.
Yeah, they got no. I don't think they got outworked. I think it was a 50-50 game. They didn't take it to Vancouver the way they did Boston.
Mm-hmm.
But they still maintained the style of game that gave them a chance to win. And I think there's a lesson here. Like, I think there's much more to take from that Boston win and even the way they played the next night against Vancouver in a game where their execution wasn't really there than there was even in the Vegas game where it was hailed as the most thorough game the Canadiens have played since Marty St. Louis took over.
So I talked to you about Gallagher and Suzuki. Really liked them on Saturday night versus the Bruins. Last night versus the Canucks, I think it was -3 for Gallagher, -4 for Suzuki. I think the Canadiens' best players got outplayed by Vancouver's best players last night.
You know what? They are riding one of the greatest waves of PDO we've ever seen in the National Hockey League, which for people who don't know that term, it's shooting percentage, which is exceptionally high, combined with goaltending percentage, which is exceptionally high. And whenever that happens, everyone in the hockey world, and even slightly in the know when it comes to analytics, will say to you, well, the regression is coming. The regression is coming. Here's the thing about that. When you have outlandishly good goaltending, yes, it might regress a little bit, but it doesn't change the fact that you have a really good goaltender. Like, Jeremy Swayman is not going to be at .952 all year, but if he drops down to .932, the Bruins are still going to win a lot. Vancouver, their shooting percentages are exceptionally high, but when you have Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser, who can really shoot the puck, and other guys like Podkolzin and even Connor Garland, who's starting to pick up his game, and JT Miller, you've got guys who can finish plays and make high-end plays. I find they play a much more organized brand of hockey with Rick Tocchet behind the bench. They are not giving up the chances that they gave up over the last couple of years. They added a couple of NHL defensemen here, Hronek being one of them. That's a big difference in terms of what they're doing. And I thought they were really on top of it last night. That said, though, like, it was a 50-50 game. If the Canadiens bury a couple of the chances they got, they're in it or winning it. So I don't have an issue with the process last night. I didn't think it was a bad game at all from the Canadiens. It just wasn't as good as the one against Boston. But what I like is the style. the style was still, we're going to try and we're not feeding the other team. We're going to try and make these things happen in the hardworking kind of manner. And if they keep doing that, they're going to be more successful than people expect.
Raphael Harvey-Pinard. Okay, let's talk about him. When he came up last year, he looked amazing. He looked amazing on a line with Suzuki. It seemed like he scored goals pretty much all the time. Maxime Lapierre joins us as a collaborator on most Tuesdays, and he said at the beginning of the season that he'd like to see Raphael Harvey-Pinard be the line mate for Caulfield and Suzuki because he could match their IQ, he can match their intensity, he can match their passion to play, he can match a lot of things, but it hasn't worked out. 0 goals, 4 assists. He's a shadow of himself. Is he the Montreal Canadiens this year's version of Rem Pitlick? Are you ready to hit the panic button or what? No panic button?
No, not even close.
We don't have to hit it. Right?
I think he's get. I think.
Everybody stop panicking! Begin panic sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Can you keep hitting it while I look for some stats?
Yeah, it's my new toy. Yeah, look for the stats. Look for the stats.
Panic! Don't panic! No panic! 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 Panic!
All right, there you have it. Hit the panic button several times.
Okay. So
the best part is that I think my wife's upstairs. She just ran downstairs because she heard the panic button go off. She doesn't know what's going on. But anyway.
So last year, Harvey-Pinard played 34 games for the Canadiens.
Huh.
At 5-on-5, scored 8 goals.
Okay.
On 40 shots. Right? So
yeah,
pretty reasonable shooting percentage there.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one.
So that's going to drop a little bit, obviously. Generated 50 scoring chances. And he had 32 high danger scoring shot attempts. That's all at 5-on-5, okay?
Yeah.
This year in 12 games, he has, I see, 7 shots. So that's a low count for him.
It's very low.
Okay, that's a low count. Meanwhile, he has 15 scoring chances and 11 high danger shot attempts. Those rates are higher than what he produced last year. So what does that tell you?
Yeah, but he's shooting a lot less, though.
He's shooting less.
7 shots at 12.
Hitting the net less. He's hitting the net less.
Yeah, that's
hitting the net a lot less.
Yeah.
He has 11 high danger shot attempts in 12 games. And he has 15 scoring chances and only 7 shots on net. And last year, his shooting percentage was pretty high.
Yeah.
So, all to say, I'm not hitting the panic button on him for a couple of reasons. One, I don't think his game is just about scoring. He definitely does need to score based on the opportunities he's getting. And he needs to hit the net with his shot and not get it blocked and not miss the net or not hit the post. And I think he's holding his stick a little tight and has been since the beginning of the season when it comes to finishing. But I'm not concerned about his game. And I think he plays a really highly effective one with the guys he's playing with right now. And I think if he gains some confidence from that position, I wouldn't hesitate to bump him up the lineup when anybody needs a spark because he's that type of player. I really liked his game over the weekend. So
I
don't think there's anything to panic about.
Did you like Slafkovsky's game as much as Marty St. Louis liked it and were impressed with the Slafkovsky's game as much as Michael Matheson was?
Yes. I mean, what's not to like? He had 7 shots and 11 attempts. Those were career highs for him.
6.
He was creating all over the
shots.
Okay, so they took one away from him.
I
can only go on the game sheet that was handed.
No, you're right. You're right. They had 7 at the end of the game last night and readjusted it this morning at 6.
Whatever.
Yeah,
he was creating a lot. I mean, I was speaking of. There was somebody who stopped me in the press box who works for another team and said Slafkovsky is really going tonight. I would say that he's going to score tonight, and I said it looks like it's going to happen. And you know what? Like, I like the kid's attitude. it could be really difficult sitting with one goal and 1 assist?
1 goal, 1 assist after 15, yeah.
It gets even harder to deal with when you know you're playing well. And he played well this weekend. He was good against Boston, and he was really good against Vancouver.
He used his body well last night.
But he wasn't down on himself last night when I talked to him. He knows that the process is healthy there, and maybe part of that influence is Marty. But I think he sincerely believes in that, and I think he's a really mature kid. And I can go on my own opinion. Yeah. I can go on Jake Allen, who I really trust and really respect, who says to me, like, it is night and day from last year to this year in terms of him processing this and not getting too hard on himself and his attitude every day at the rink and how he feels about things that are going on. And I don't know, like, I think that was what I wrote about last night at Sportsnet, is from Slafkovsky to Anderson, who we didn't get a chance to talk to, but Marty said he's keeping it light, to Matheson, who he had a goal last night. He finished -3, but really there was only 1 goal that he was responsible for against, and it was the 3rd goal Vancouver scored. The other 2 were into empty nets. He played 23 minutes. He had, I don't know how many shots, 5 or something like that. Yeah. And like, you could have easily said, like, yeah, my game was fine. He took the blame. He didn't play his best game last night. His execution wasn't on. He gave away pucks more often than he should. And he was on for a critical goal against that kind of broke the Canadiens back, where he lost coverage on his man. And, asked him about the game after. He said, I look inward and I wasn't good enough. And our execution wasn't good enough. And that starts with me.
One shot for Matheson last night.
I'd bring up these 3 cases, Anderson, Slafkovsky, Matheson. And I wrote about self-assessment. And the Canadiens are getting better at that. And that's a sign of maturity. People can't forget, this is the 3rd youngest team in the National Hockey League. And I know it's annoying. The writers, myself included, we all write about development all the time, maturation process. But that's where this team is at. That's the stage that they're in.
Well, it wouldn't be fair if you would write about something that they're actually writing about, a place where they aren't at, or writing about something they're doing that they're not trying to do. Like, this is a rebuild. We are now in phase 2 of the rebuild. They have turned the corner, but it's still a rebuild, and that's where we are. And you're right. You're going to have to talk more about development than anything else, because that's what they're trying to accomplish.
But those guys individually and as a team being able to understand when the process is healthy, even if the result isn't there, or vice versa, not get wrapped up in the result and disillusion yourself in terms of what you're doing. Like, they won some games earlier that Marty talked just a week ago saying, I was guilty of it as anybody, is kind of pushing aside some of the issues we had in our game, where we had come back in 3rd periods and won the game in overtime, and the first 2 periods were rotten, and we didn't really fix those issues, and you put a Band-Aid on it, and then all of a sudden you need major surgery, and it's too late. Yeah. They've learned from that, because when you hear the assessments last night after the game, it's in line with the fact that they've learned from it, and on both sides, from Matheson, who anybody could have looked at the stat sheet and been like, he was all right, and he says he wasn't good enough. And from Slafkovsky, who ends up -2 and has 0 points, but is able to say, no, I played well tonight. Like, this was good for me. This was a good game. That's important.
Eric, I just hope, and he did play a good game last night.
He's still frustrated, by the way. Just to be clear. He's frustrated, and anybody would be in this situation.
Yeah, he's got 2 points in 15 games. If you do the math and you average it out, 5 times 75, 2 points, he's going to finish with 13 points or something this season, right? And obviously, you would think he's going to do a lot better than that, you would think, because...
Well, if he plays like he did last night, I think he won't have to worry that much about points anymore.
But this is what I'm getting at. I just hope we don't get to the 25-30 game mark and he's got 4 points, because then we could talk about the process all we want. We could talk about development all we want. There's going to be several who are going to say, it's not working out. So, because they're going to look at the points department and not look at the other stuff. I'm just saying, I just hope it doesn't get to that point where a 25-30 game mark, He's got 4 points. I mean,
I
I'm
agree with
pulling
you
for this guy to pick up a couple of points here this week.
I agree with you, but I would also say that the most important thing, and it's exactly what I wrote about last night, is how they assess themselves. That's the most important thing. When you're talking about a group maturing, what did Lafreniere do last night, by the way?
He exploded last night.
Yeah.
He's on pace for 41 goals, Alexis Lafreniere.
Okay.
I never gave up on that guy. I love
No,
that.
just you didn't. But like everybody did.
I was in the studio with George Larac at the BPM Sports, I would say about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he was like, who would you rather have, Askarov or Lafreniere? And he went Askarov. I'm like, no, Lafreniere. And Askarov might turn out to be a very good goalie, by the way, but I think Lafreniere, more often than not, guys who have produced at every level and they end up going number 1 overall, more often than not, they end up putting up a point per game in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, he had 12 goals his first season in 56 games. He had 19 goals in 79 games the next year and 31 points. He had 16 goals and 39 points last year, which everybody thought, okay, like, is he finally going to get there? Is he finally going to break out? It didn't happen. And you know what? Coming into this year, people said it's never going to happen for him.
Well, Larry Brooks wrote a piece in the New York Post where he said that Lafreniere was just playing with no passion whatsoever and no work ethic, and he really gave it to him really good. And, I don't know if it was warranted because it was preseason. I don't know if it was a wake-up call, but, the encouraging thing for Lafreniere was, once again, 21 points, 31 points, 39 points. And this year it looks like he could be off to the races. I mean, 11 points in 14 games. That's going to end up translating to a pretty nice season when all is said and done. If
it's a good start, he's got to maintain it. There's been plenty of players who get good starts, but the point is, like, just even now, where number ones are automatically always graduated into the NHL, like it just takes time for some of them, especially the ones who are kind of in the power forward mold.
Kaden Guhle,
dominant.
He's +7, man. The guy plays like he's been in the National Hockey League for 12 years.
Yeah, I don't care about the plus minus. I care about what I see on both ends of the puck. And just like, honestly, I don't even want to look at the stats. The eye test is doing plenty for me. I know
the eye test says he's playing like the Canadiens' best defenseman this year.
That's the eye test. And like, I don't know of anybody who watches Kaden Guhle that can't see it. Like, he's totally dominant. He's totally dominant. There are situations where I'm hoping he can exercise a little bit of caution. Just I don't want to. He cares so much and plays so hard that he is often in vulnerable positions, and he's suffered significant injuries so far on the way to the NHL and in the NHL. But I would be pulling out my hairs one by one to find something critical to say about this player. Like, he's a
stud.
He's fun to watch. He's really fun to watch, and there's more offense to his game than is even on the paper right now. Like, he's really good.
Speaking of the eye test, did you hear about the eye test with Jimmy Murphy and Pierre Maguire? Did you hear about that?
I'm excited for those guys. Those are friends of mine, and I'm happy to see it happening here.
They dropped the podcast there first, by the way, earlier today. So if you have a chance, check it out. Pierre Maguire and Jimmy Murphy have joined the Sick Podcast Network. Okay, it's a pretty much an all hockey show, right? So they're going to be talking about NHL. They're going to be talking about college hockey. They'll be talking about the women's game from time to it's just anything hockey that's going. And earlier today, a couple of subjects came up, one of which was Scotty Bowman. Pierre was at the Hockey Hall of Fame, by the way, and congratulations to all of those who were inducted. I don't have the list in front of me, Eric. I don't know if you do.
Did you get a chance to see the speech from Pierre Lacroix's grandson?
I did not know. I was prepping for the show, and I did.
I'm sure.
I did. And the plan is to watch it tonight, to tell you the truth.
It was great.
I was prepping, and I didn't have I was taking some stats down. I didn't have the TV on, but I wanted to watch it. But Eric, pardon me, the late Pierre Lacroix, of course, goes in. Ken Hitchcock goes in. Caroline Ouellette goes in. Pierre Turgeon goes in. Henrik Lundqvist goes in. Tom Barrasso goes in, and I don't have them written in front of me right now, so I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. There was another goalie.
You got most of them. You got most of them.
Yeah.
And now I'm blanking on who the other ones are. But
there was another goalie that I'm missing. I shouldn't be missing here, by the way.
Yeah. Anyways, it's okay. I'm sure people watched it, and if they didn't, they'll check out the videos.
Mike Vernon was the other goalie, right?
Yeah. Well, I think so. I didn't get to watch the whole program either because I'm here with you.
Yeah. All right. Okay. There you have it. Okay. So Craig Button was on the other day, and we were talking about. He had some great stories, by the way, on Ken Hitchcock. Tony Pergeneros.
I think we all do.
Yeah. Tony Pergeneros says, "I hope Pierre Maguire is a guest on your show in the future, Tony." Yes, he will be. 100% that he will be at some point. We're going to cross promote. And speaking of which, Sean Simpson, Simmer Down, started a show covering the Ottawa Senators.
Hugely popular in Ottawa.
Yeah, last week. And I'm going to be a guest on his show 1 week from today. So next week, Monday. So there's going to be a lot of cross promotion going on. But I have to tell you, and we are, we're going to say this with a lot of humility. Our business, sports business, it's hurting. And it has been hurting over the last couple of years. And it's been hurting more and more and more. And a lot of very talented people have lost their jobs. A lot of very talented people have seen their pay cut if they did hold on to their job. And it's been a tough time in the industry. And the fact that this started up, the Sick Podcast Network, just over 3 years ago, and about a year and a half ago, we decided to go full time with it. And a year and a half after going full time, we're actually expanding and we're hiring when the business is in a lot of trouble, and we're doing that. It makes us feel pretty good about who we are, what we do, where we're headed. It's pretty encouraging. All right, okay, so we're hiring now up to about 19 or 20 podcasts throughout North America. West Islander is a Quebecer, Big T. Jim, I know that, but I never said that I didn't think it wasn't. I said that according to some, Michael Matheson is not a Quebecer. For me, he is very much a Quebecer. But according to some, Raphael Harvey-Pinard is, and David Savard is, and Samuel Montembeault is, but Michael Matheson is not. According to some.
According to some, you and I aren't either, but we are.
Yeah. I don't even know why I should. Damn me for going there. I should not have gone there. But anyway, I went there.
Are we taking questions? Is that what I read?
Yeah, we're going to take questions in a second. But before we do, one last one. Mm-hmm. I don't know how Alex Burrows did it, but he did it. He turned it around.
Oh, my God. This narrative about Alex Burrows is perhaps the most false narrative going with the Montreal Canadiens. Does he run the Canadiens power play? Yes. Is Marty St. Louis heavily involved? Yes. Have the Canadiens focused specifically on their power play and different concepts injected into it before this season? Not really. Marty St. Louis said as much in an interview with me before the season started, that really all they wanted to do was rectify the 5-on-5 play and build a base and a foundation for how they're going to win games. Because let's face it, you play 95% of them at 5-on-5. Now all of a sudden there's things going on. There's a few different factors why power play works and why it doesn't. One is you have to have good players. I think Kirk Muller was the guy who said, "Show me good players, I'll show you good power play."
Yeah.
Another is familiarity. And like the guys who are on the power play and started building something towards the end of last year are on it again this year. And even without Kirby Dach there, it's going pretty well. And the second unit has contributed quite well as well, with guys who have played consistently in their career on the power play and in power play roles. And so I think Justin Barron's a good fit there. I'm not taking anything away from Alex Burrows, but just in the way that he didn't deserve all the blame for the power play being kind of a failing product over the last couple of years. He certainly doesn't need to have all the credit, but it's nice to see him getting some. And I see Max Lapierre posting his picture every time they score a power play goal.
That's pretty
much, which is pretty much every game right now. And I think it's hilarious, and keep doing it. But the people who constantly have been harping on Alex Burrows, he's the assistant coach who is charged with the power play, but everybody's touching on that. The entire staff. And Marty St. Louis is extremely involved.
Yeah.
So
I hear you. You know, it's just that even though it's a committee thing, you always look at the guy who is kind of assigned to get that going, almost like an offensive coordinator in football. And because the Canadiens had the worst and second worst power play in the last couple of years, that's where that attention was on Burrows. I was actually, the last couple of minutes here, I was taking a look. Maxime Lapierre had sent me over his schedule. I was going to see if he was on tomorrow. He actually is. Lapierre told me a story about Burrows and about the power play. And if Lapierre wasn't going to be on tomorrow, I would repeat the story. But because he is going to be on tomorrow, I'm going to have Maxime Lapierre say the story tomorrow. All right.
Good.
Okay. Why don't we do this? Before we let you go, let's take 5 very quick questions, right?
Love
Maybe I'll tackle one, you tackle one. We'll start with you. Okay. Agnello and Sammy and Master Control. This one coming from José Levesque. La Belle José. Question for you, gentlemen. She must be talking about you, Eric. What do you think about swapping Evans for Dvorak to play with Cole and Slav?
I don't dislike it. I don't think Dvorak is playing bad, though. Like, I think that line is actually coming out with some good chemistry. And what I like about it right now is that Caulfield has the puck on his stick quite a bit more, and he's getting a bit away from some of the matchups he's been in throughout the season. As far as Evans is concerned, I really like the game that him, Raphael, Harvey-Pinard, and Pezzetta play together.
And when Pezzetta's not there and they put Yulin in, they play really well together as a line as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't rush to put Armia on that line right now. And that's no disrespect to Armia, who's doing a good job killing penalties. It's just he slows down the pace of it. He doesn't play that grinding kind of corner game and forecheck game. And those 3 guys, almost like the Gallagher, Monahan, Pearson line without necessarily as much offensive upside, they play a hard in-your-face game that I think, as I said, Marty can rely on more. And if Dvorak were really struggling with Caulfield and Suzuki, with Caulfield and Slafkovsky, I'd consider it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a long-term fit with Dvorak and those 2 guys, but it looks good right now, so I wouldn't be rushing to make a change.
I don't think he's struggling, and obviously the Gallagher line is going pretty good. But at one point, if he is, the one move I would make would probably be to put Monahan between Slafkovsky and Caulfield.
I would angle that way too. And I also I think some of the guys on the beat have brought this up, that the Gallagher-Dvorak combination has not been good in the past. It really hasn't worked. But Gallagher's healthy, and he wasn't in the past.
Yeah.
And I also think that Dvorak is playing good hockey right now, and he plays a straightforward enough style of game that I don't know that it would be a massive change without taking anything away from what Monahan is doing at the center of that line, because he's been excellent, obviously.
Yeah. Question number 2. Here we go. Mike Mankafas. I think we should keep Monahan and trade Pearson at the deadline. What do you guys think, Eric?
I think the Canadiens are going to have a good chance. I mean, let's see what happens between now and the trade deadline. But if it goes the way we should expect it to go, that the Canadiens will probably taper off a little bit and be a little too far outside the playoff picture to keep pushing with what they have, I think you trade both of them. I don't look. It's all contingent on what you get. But the way Sean Monahan's playing right now, you're guaranteed, I think, a first-round pick and something on top of that as well. And that's not something you turn away from. And I don't want to detract, by the way, from Monahan's value to the Canadiens and what he's done and his age and this and that. But the Canadiens, one of the things Kent Hughes has said that is very logical is if you're going to pay free agents money and give them term, you're doing so knowing that the first couple of years are usually the best ones. And if your team is not in a position to win and compete for the Stanley Cup,
then there's no use, because when you are, those later years are going to be the worst ones.
And I'm not for what Sean Monahan has been through, if this season nets him a long-term deal with any team in the NHL, I would wish that for him. Yeah. And if his desire is to return to Montreal, if he continues down this path and gets traded before the trade deadline, which I think is very likely, considering what his value will be on the market, and he really wants to return, then we could talk about that then. And I don't think anybody would look at it in a medium-term deal and a number that's digestible and say, well, that's stupid. I mean, but this whole idea of, well, keep him and he's too valuable to the team, and the guys, like, the market will dictate what they do with him, and Eric, the market is going to pay for him.
Let's be honest. The second they acquired him,
Pearson has been good.
Yeah, he's been very good. The second they acquired, could have scored last night. He hit the post on a 0-0 game. The second they acquire Sean Monahan, their thought was at the deadline, if we can get a first-round pick for him, he's gone. We're trading him.
They were going to last year. I can guarantee you that.
17 points in 25 games before going down with the injury. All right, okay.
They're gonna if he keeps going this way, they're going to get more than that. They're going to get more than that.
It's something I'm sure we'll discuss with Max Lapierre tomorrow night. Why don't we do this, Eric? Let's shut it down here.
Shut it down?
I think we
had 2 more questions.
Okay, 2 more. Let's go.
You're tired?
No, not at all. Rhaegar Maganov. When do you think Roy gets the call up to the Habs? Is there someone else you think will get the call as well? Joshua Roy, obviously.
Don't want to put a day or a week on it, but I would bet any amount of money he's playing games in the NHL at some point this year.
Yeah,
I'll say if it's long term or whatever, he's going to get a taste.
I'll say before Christmas. I'll say before Christmas.
That's a good one. That's interesting.
Yeah, next. That'll be his Christmas present. Drum Dude 74. Who wins the cup this year, Tony and Eric? It's early. I know. It's just a guess.
Who you going with?
The pick that I had before the season started is not looking good right now.
Who was it?
Colorado.
Yeah, they have time to turn that around.
Yeah, I just thought their defense was just amazing, puck-moving defensemen. And
they still are.
Very, very fast, and they're just...
They're a bit of a funk right now.
They're up and down, but they've been blown out of the water a couple of times.
I'll tell you, man, not having
Vegas laid the smackdown on them a couple of weeks
ago.
Not
having Landeskog is tough, man. Yeah. Vegas, to me, and they've lost a few recently, but they look like a team that they could beat anybody. The team for me is Dallas. I just think Dallas, when you have guys like Seguin on your third line, and you have Miro Heiskanen and you have Jake Ottinger and Jason Robertson and just young talent like Wyatt Johnson, I would not want to play that team in the playoffs the way they're built, and I like their chances of winning the cup.
Rupe Hintz.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, last one. And now I think we already took 5, and now I'm saying last one and one for
last one. Let's do it.
Glenn De La Ciega. When you say the Habs have turned the corner, can you explain in what direction in terms compared to last year?
I don't recall saying that they did.
I said they're in phase 2 of the rebuild.
Oh, they're definitely past the infancy stage.
Yeah, that's it. So
they're not learning how to play all of a sudden and figuring out what the concepts are that Marty's trying to preach. They have a baseline here that they've been working off of, and they've been taking steps forward in terms of establishing that. But
that's it.
I think I said this on your show.
Yeah,
and I'll continue to say it. Next year, Doc will come back healthy, and if in between this year and next year, the Canadiens acquire a player who can score on a regular basis, not quite at Cole Caulfield's level, but
if they acquire a 35 goal scorer,
close to it, that's when this whole thing becomes something different. That's when this whole thing changes. Because I think Kirby Doc is legit.
Yeah.
And I think Suzuki's legit. And I think Caulfield's legit. And I think if you have another scorer next to Doc, with what the Canadiens have built on defense, they're going to be a team that people will be taking much more seriously. And that will be the beginning stages of them becoming a lot more competitive.
You know what? If not, and if they can't acquire that player, look at the bright side. In 3 years from now, Michkov will come over from. Oh wait! I had to get that.
No, but the Canadiens have a couple players in Russia who might come over and might make a big difference in this as well. One's a defenseman, and they're both.
Their defenseman is playing really good. Homelander says, does Lane Hudson join the Canadiens at the end of his college season? This is Agnello and Sammy, who say 5 questions, and now all of a sudden they throw a question.
I love them, but that was a question that didn't need to be asked because we already know the answer.
Yeah. You love them, eh? Yeah, you love them.
I do. I really do. They're my favorite.
Good for you, man.
Out of the 4 of us, they're my favorites.
Agnello upsets me every now and then, but other than that, it's all good. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again. Once again, we'll bring up the Canadian schedule before you actually break away here. Let's do that. Here it is. This is the month of November. A loss in Arizona, a loss in St. Louis, a loss at home versus Tampa, a win in Detroit, a win versus the Bruins, a loss last night versus the Canucks. And now this week, the rest of the week, they host Calgary tomorrow night. They host Vegas on Thursday night, and they go to Boston on Saturday night.
Easy.
Sometimes, some of the boys like to take trips, and they like to go on the road and they watch a game. That seems like a really nice road trip. A weekend in Boston. You leave on a Friday morning. You spend all of Friday, all of Saturday. You come back Sunday to Montreal. Lucky you, if any of you are going to that game in Boston.
Let me tell you about what comes after that for a hockey reporter, okay?
Yeah.
I'm flying the 20th after Canadiens practice to Los Angeles.
Okay.
It's a night flight.
Mm-hmm.
There is practice on the 21st. There is this game in Anaheim, and the schedule being what it is, I have to go from Anaheim, which is right next to Los Angeles, to Northern California and San Jose, which is nowhere near either of them, and then come back to Los Angeles. And then the Canadiens are off the 26th in Los Angeles and practicing on the 27th in Los Angeles, at which point I will board a flight at 8:55 p.m. Western time to fly to Columbus and arrive at 6 a.m. so that I can be at practice on the 28th and then game on the 29th, then come home on the 30th because there's a game at the Bell Center. And then I'm off to the Board of Governors meeting in Seattle. So,
wow. Let me ask you something.
I'm going to be a little messed up after those couple of weeks.
Once you arrive in California, what do you do after? You rent a car and you drive or what?
Well, I rent a car for sure because I got to go to Anaheim. You don't fly to Anaheim. You fly to LA. That's 3 trips to LAX because of the way that's structured. Typically, the way it's structured is you go to San Jose and then you go to LA and Anaheim for a back-to-back. Not you go to Anaheim and then you have San Jose and LA back.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Thankfully, they're afternoon games. Might catch some Sunday night football when the Canadiens are off on the 26th there at LA and Baltimore.
Yeah.
Which should be cool.
I don't like driving when I get away. When I'm out of town, I don't like, I do it, but I mean, if I have a chance.
I don't like flying from the West Coast to the East Coast overnight so that I could be a practice the next day. But this is the job I've chosen, and this is what it's going to be.
Yeah, it's a tough life. The job I've chosen is I stay home in my basement Monday to Thursday, 10 p.m. show. I log on at around 9:45 p.m. I got my fridge 5 feet away, my bathroom 10 feet away, and we talk hockey for about an hour. In this case, we went overtime, but this is the job that I've chosen. But you know what? You're the winner because you don't have to deal with Agnello on a day-to-day basis. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
All right, there you have it. Marinaro, the Sick Podcast. I want to thank Energy Transportation Group, of course, leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America. They're driven to be different. I want to thank Playground. Over 600 machines, poker tournaments, and Playground casino games, daily promotions, unmatched customer service. Why go anywhere else? Located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. And I want to thank Bittt, Tibi, Brewed in Quebec, a winner of a dozen international awards. They offer quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. Bittt, Tibi, embrace your true nature. Speaking of Playground before, by the way, once again, I've told you before, I told you again. We told you we're going to get together. We're going to have a beverage. We're going to have some hors d'oeuvres to munch on. We're going to play the slots. I think some of you might even play poker. And we'll have an eye on the Montreal Canadiens game that night as they host and play the New York Islanders. And I think I might even be jumping on with an abbreviated Sick Podcast edition of a post-game show per se right after the game. That's going to be at Playground. Once again, save the date, Saturday, December 16th, the Sick Podcast with myself at Playground. And Sammy and Agnello are going to be there too. And hopefully some of our collaborators. More details to come. Save the date. Thank you all for watching. If you liked it, like it, share with your friends, comment, Sick, S-I-C-K. And on Apple, leave us a 5-star review. It's our way of feeling the love for Agnello, Sammy, and Juliana at Master Control. They're Cavallaro. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVie.tv, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.